Your alumni love helping students and fellow graduates, but they simply don't have time to attend every event, answer every call, or learn yet another online platform. With Protopia, making an impact is easier than it's ever been before. Ever. There's no new app to sign up for or use in our already busy lives. Students, alumni, or even staff can quickly ask for advice or networking via a simple form, email, or text. Protopia's artificial intelligence searches the institution's existing alumni data to find the best experts that are the most likely to assist based on experience, availability, location, and other factors. Each matched alum receives a direct, blind email to ask them to help, giving alumni full control over if and how they want to respond, whether that's by email, call, or a virtual meeting. And if it's not a good time, Protopia's AI simply reaches out to the next alum until the question has been answered. The student receives advice right into her email inbox and is coached to engage the alum to grow her professional network. Finally, our rich dashboard lets staff follow along, view detailed engagement analytics, and access updated alumni data. Protopia. Simple for them, simple for you.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Alumless. Thank you so much for listening. Today is Friday, August 16th, 2024, and this is the Perspective Change in Alumni Engagement Edition. I'm Ryan Catherwood. I am joined by CMAC CEO, founder, president extraordinaire, Chris Marshall. Good to see you, sir. How are you?
You too. Good to see you too.
Happy Friday to you. As our listeners know, on the show, we talk about engagement strategies in advancement. We are live today, which we always try to be if possible. And I hope that you'll all take a moment. And if you're listening on LinkedIn or on YouTube, say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're dialing in from. And if you have any questions for myself or Chris, or better yet, our fantastic guest today, Renée Hirschberg, Chief Alumni Relations Officer from the Stanford Alumni Association. Be sure to pop those into the event in LinkedIn so that we can see them here and answer them on the show or in the bonus edition if we can. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the podcast edition of Alumless to hear our 30-minute bonus segment with Renée Hirschberg, today's special guest, all of our special guests, actually. And we'll be grateful for having you pick up Alumless and make it part of your routine. And again, thank you to Max Lyson and the team at Protopia for sponsoring Alumless. Couldn't do it without them. And yeah, happy Friday. Good to see you.
You too, man. I just flew in this morning from Columbus, Ohio. I was out at Denison for a couple of days, and I got a 4:30 a.m. wake up, 6 a.m. flight out of Columbus, landed in Newark, and was home by 8:30 a.m. and and nine meetings in a row today. So I'm looking forward to
9 meetings back to back. Just another day in the world of Chris Marshall. That's road warrior plus appointments. Awesome. Well, so Chris, getting late in the summer, I know my kids are going back to school. It's the resident assistants, the orientation advisors are probably already back, doing training for freshmen. And it's, the final days of the summer are a lot of excitement building on campus. But how do you think sort of alumni leaders ought to be thinking about these final days, getting ready for school and making those last minute preparations?
It's the calm before the storm, I think. And although I was at Denison, I was on a call this morning, I could see students in the background on the call I was on. It's all the student athletes are coming back early too, in addition to the orientation leaders and those folks that you mentioned. And so it's just about to start. And, at this point, retreats should be done. Plans should be ready. Vacations are probably over for most alumni professionals because it's going to start. I mean, the world's going to get busy very quickly for all of us. And hopefully you've done all those things. You've checked all those boxes. And now it's time to, you go to implementation mode. The summers are time, I think, for strategy and planning and looking ahead and planning out the year. And then you go into implementation mode when the year kicks in. But, good places to spend time throughout the fall and throughout the spring, taking moments where they'll pause and look ahead and be strategic as well. But there's a lot of execution that goes on at this stage of the game, and people, hopefully they're ready. And we'll find out if you are or not.
Yeah,
Like it or not.
absolutely. Well, first off, thanks to Kira, Scott, Danielle, Janelle, Gina, and Larry for
Yeah.
joining us and
Hello,
saying
everybody.
hi in the chat. We're grateful for you all for taking some time on your Friday to join us. So thank you. So, we're going to talk to Renee a bit about sort of a perspective change, right? So, Renee moving from a decentralized role to a centralized role, which we'll discuss with her in depth. But I guess I wanted to ask you, sort of thinking about if you were advising someone who is thinking about a role in alumni engagement, and that person's thinking about a role working for a college or a school versus in the advancement office, alumni association, a more central position. What would you say are maybe the advantages or disadvantages of each?
Yeah. The first thing I would say is, first of all, take the role. It's alumni engagement. It'd be good for your career. The second thing I would say, no matter where you end up, make sure you play nice in the other direction, whether you're central working with the units or unit working with the central office. We need to have a collaborative posture there out of the gate. And as you and I know, Ryan, we come upon some places where it's a really healthy relationship between the two, and they figured it out, and they know how to zig and zag, and other places where they're at odds with each other, they don't talk to each other, and there's animosity. And so the first thing I would say would be is to make sure you figure out a way, because there could be benefits from both sides of that equation. There's things that can happen centrally, sort of a hub and spoke model. There's certain things that only happen a decentralized way, but the pros and cons. I think it's healthy for someone who has if you're going to have a career in alumni engagement, I think it'd be really healthy to have one in the center and one out in the unit where you can see both perspectives of what it's like. And if obviously in the unit-based one, you're going to have more focus and more content around a certain network of people that have, if you're in a business school or a law school, the focus is different. And then in the central office, you're going to have more generalists and more opportunity to partner with all the other schools and units. So I give you a lame consultant answer, right? I think it depends. I think it depends on where you are in your career path. It depends on what institution it is and how well they collaborate. But I think it's healthy for somebody on a long-term alumni engagement career journey to have moments in time where they've had chance to be parked for some point in either the central or the unit-based opportunity.
Yeah. Well, let's bring out Renee and talk about it. I found in my experience, there's always this interesting ebb and flow of decentralized to centralized. Centralized is decentralized in terms of sort of the emphasis. But let's talk to Renee about it. Hey, Renee, how's it going?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well,
great to have you. Look at that background. That's probably a real background, too, at Stanford.
That is our alumni center, sir. My office is somewhere back there.
And the palm trees looking great. Yeah.
Everyone on the live was like, ugh, right now.
Yeah. Renee,
my job here is done. Goodbye, all.
Yeah. Palm trees complete. Well, Renee is the Chief Alumni Relations Officer at the Stanford Alumni Association, where she's been for just about a year now. Prior to her role in the Alumni Association, Renee was the Senior Director of Alumni Relations at the Stanford Graduate School of Business. So just as we were kind of discussing, Renee is someone who really brings to her role as the Chief Alumni Relations Officer that rich background in the business school. Renee, as you've switched roles from that decentralized vantage point to the with the Graduate School of Business, now to the Alumni Association, what experiences do you think have benefited you from your time at GSB the most in sort of getting adjusted to working centrally?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so much in there, and it actually extends further back, not just to my time at the GSB, but before the GSB, I was at the Tuck School at Dartmouth College, and before that, I was at MIT Sloan at MIT. So I have a long history in the B School world, and did not come to Stanford expecting to make the switch into the centralized office. However, throughout my career, I've really made it a point to be friendly with the people in the centralized office, find collaboration where we can. Chris, everything you were saying is dead on, right? It's really important to have those connections, to see what you can be collaborating on, and to know the people. That's the most important part, right? You should know all the people who are doing the same work, if for nothing else, and to bounce ideas off each other and really just collaborate and think of new things, so you don't get stuck in kind of your silo of thinking only about the world of, the business school, the school of education, whatever it is you're in. So I would say, Ryan, back to your question, the most important experience is really getting to meet the folks at Central and understanding what they do, and understanding that the world is not everywhere is not exactly as it is in your decentralized school. It is different everywhere. For example, the schools at Stanford range from, in their alumni relations support within the schools, range from having a half of a person for alumni relations up to 16 people in the business school. So there's a wide range of what people can do. And for those folks who have a half a person, one person, whatever it is, it's even more important to be collaborating with the centralized school and thinking about the centralized organization in order to be thinking about what's the collaboration and how do you not recreate the wheel every single time you do something.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, that sort of mentality of not trying to recreate the wheel every single time, like figure out where the existing structures are, people who may be trying to tackle the same problems of you across campus. Renee, it's been about a year, right, since you made the switch. What are a thing or some things that have really surprised you so far about since you've made the switch?
Not much surprises me, especially because, like I said, I made a point to have a lot of the relationships and understand the organization before I came over. I think there's just a lot of adjustment when you're moving from a scope of 28,000 business school alumni to 240,000 university alumni. So that's a really interesting switch in what you can actually do for people. How handheld of service can you provide? And I think the thing that's actually most surprising is the customer service that SAA is able to provide to 240,000 alumni. I have never seen anything like it. An alum writes in to the Alumni Association and they get a response, a personalized response. Somebody takes whatever they're writing about seriously, looks into it, and responds. And that's just a huge scope to be able to do. And the team just goes above and beyond in order to do that. So that was probably the most surprising piece.
But always had a great deal of respect for the program there. Howard has been and I think of him as a mentor and a dear friend of mine. In fact, I don't know if you know the story, but when I started in my role in your kind of role at Lehigh, I went out and visited him to find out what he was doing. He was kind of new as well. Turns out his wife and father-in-law are both Lehigh grads, so we kind of had that in common, and we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. Phenomenal program. I would argue it's one of the best programs in the country. It's also resourced pretty well. The reason you can do that kind of response that you just described is you have 240,000 staff to help deal with the 240,000 alum. I'm teasing.
You'd be surprised, Chris, that we are one of the larger staffed alumni associations, but no matter where you are, it's never enough. Right?
100% agree.
You want to give your alumni everything.
Yep.
And it's so hard to do. And we, even with the size that we do have conversations, and we're in these this is what we've been doing this summer is, where can we trim back in order to make sure we are doing the things that have the most impact for the most people? So, just reassessing how we do things more than what we do, but we also have to make sure to keep a pulse on the metrics and what we do as well, and make sure we're adjusting to the times.
So even Stanford has to, the word I use all the time is focus. You have to have focus on certain things that are going to have the best outcome. So give us a couple examples. I'm going to ask you a two-part question because I'm dying to hear the second part of this. We'll go off script on the second. But the first one is on script, which is, what do you do well? Give us a few examples of where you think you guys are succeeding, and then tell everybody what it's like to work with Howard.
What do we do well? I mean, I think I kind of just alluded to that is the individualized response and really giving attention to hopefully all alums who are looking for attention. That's something we do really well. We also are just incredible at engagement opportunities, the things we're doing and the way we think about things. We launched 2 years ago a program called the Young Alumni Opportunity Fund in an effort to, better engage our young alumni. So looking at the 0 to 5 years out. And this fund, last year we got 280 applications for individual young alumni who wanted to host something in their area. And the funding we're able to provide is not huge in any way, shape, or form, but it was just folks who said, yeah, I want this opportunity and I want to do this. And it was such a great engagement piece. So the teams are really just wonderful about thinking, how can we engage people in a way that's sustainable for the organization? The second part, what is it like to work with Howard? It's amazing. I think, it's fascinating because in the business school world, I have been brought in to Oregon, and I know, Howard had the whole conversation about this and this. I have always, in the business school world, it's this, right? It's an advancement and alumni relations sit under the same roof and have kind of the same goals and whatnot. So I have always been brought in. I was brought into, I developed it at MIT Sloan, and then I was brought into Tuck, and I was brought into the GSB because I'm sitting under an associate dean of external relations who really focuses and specializes in the development side of the house. So I've always been brought in to be the specialist for alumni relations and to really help define that. So coming into centralized organizations, specifically under Howard Wolf, I am now able to learn from somebody who is, I think a lot of folks would argue, is the specialist in alumni relations. Yep. So it's really, really wonderful to be able to have somebody like that who can teach me about alumni relations too, and teach me the things I don't know and help me look at things in a different light.
Yeah, for folks that may not know the name Howard Wolf, so his title is Vice President for Alumni Engagement, I believe is official.
Correct, and the president of the Alumni Association.
President of the Alumni Association, right? He was a past guest on Alumless. So if you go to our podcast and you look back at previous episodes, you can see the discussion that we had with Howard, which was one of the most listened to and watched versions that we've had. So check that one out too.
Renee, I just wanted to ask you about, we heard a couple of things you all do really well, that personalized attention. What are some of the areas where the Stanford Alumni Association is currently working to innovate, opportunities for growth, and maybe sort of just, if you would, remark with that theme in mind about maybe some opportunities for growth as it relates to partnerships with colleges and schools around the university?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually our largest area of growth right now. So it meshes nicely with the question that, there was a study done, they started it in, I think, 2022, or it was completed in 2022, on our graduate alumni population. And our graduate alumni population is now over 53% of the Stanford alumni body. And now that's a fascinating statistic to think about when you have had a program that really mostly looks at the undergraduate experience. So we're having to shift there and really think more about how do we better engage our graduate alumni. And this comes with so many questions, because the truth is graduate alumni are very engaged with their school. So now you have this whole philosophical conversation about, what's the impact you're looking for here? If they're engaging with the school, it doesn't matter if they're engaging with the central organization, or, what do you really want to measure here? And you have to be really careful not to just create measurement to create measurement. So as we're thinking about it, obviously you might say, well, let's look at all of our engagement opportunities and just see if we're increasing our grad alumni engagement with those opportunities. But then you also have to ask, once again, doesn't matter, because they're engaging with their graduate school. So it's really intricate. There's a lot to think about. We have been, for the full time I've been here now, which is about 10 months, we've been going back and forth on what's the metrics you want to use to measure this, because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. I am not a fan, and my team knows this, I am not a fan of solely looking at RSVP and attendance rates. That'll tell you how good you did at getting people there, but it won't necessarily tell you, did you engage new people? Did you engage specific populations? What was the impact of your event, right? You have attendance numbers, you have NPS that'll tell you how well you did in executing the event, but what are you doing to measure the impact of that event and your impact goals? So that's one of the things we're focusing on right now. The other piece is really working with the graduate schools to, repeat what I said earlier, not recreate the wheel, and really collaborate closely with these groups. A few examples, our alumni education program last year, Amy DeBose, who's our director of alumni education, her and her team hosted somewhere in the realm of double digits of virtual programs. This year, we have a goal of her only producing 3 virtual programs that come from Stanford Alumni Association, because there's so much that our graduate schools are doing. So let's make sure that we are reinforcing the work they're doing, marketing the work they're doing, and really work together as a team, because everybody's doing these fantastic pieces. So let's make sure our alumni see all of that. That's going to result in a few different things. It makes lives of our partners at the schools easier. It makes our lives easier, and it gives our graduate alumni and alumni interested in the disciplines that our graduate schools are talking about. It really gives them more opportunity and a wider breadth of experience too. So that's a way we're looking at it. I think, we also have a big initiative, and this kind of goes into one of the questions you're going to ask in a minute, Ryan. So I'm gonna piece it together of new initiatives, and thinking about what we're excited about right now. We have a really big new program coming up. It is our first major innovation to Reunion Homecoming in 25 years, where we have added All Alumni Day, which is going to take place on the Saturday of Reunion Homecoming, where we are specifically inviting all graduate alumni, young alumni 0 to 4 years out, since we have a 5th year reunion, and non-reunion year alumni to come back to campus on the Saturday of reunion, and we are going to have programming specifically for them. I know other schools do this, but this is not something that Stanford has done. So it's a pretty big change in what we're doing, and we're really looking at that programming to see how can we engage those audiences specifically. And here's the minutia, right? You can't sacrifice the reunion homecoming experience for those in reunion years. So This is a dance, and it's
and this involves a lot more partners on campus, I would think too. You're pulling in those people from those schools and units and all that, right?
That's exactly right. So we're really relying on those partners to help us do this. So it's pretty exciting. I can tell you on October 27th how it went, but we're excited about it. And it's a huge initiative that a lot of people are working really hard on.
Very cool.
Renee, I had the same thought. I had the same thought that Shannon Connolly had when you were talking about your work you're doing, measuring the impact of events. She notes, again, it's a really hard thing to do. And if you could share just a little bit more about how you're thinking about measuring impact.
Yeah. And hi, Shannon. Glad you joined. Shannon's over at Wharton, so glad to have her. We are really, I think, we're playing around with that right now. We're testing things, and we had a conversation yesterday about what's the question, because the other thing is you can't ask people 900 questions in order to get where you're at. So in my perspective, I think what we need to do is ask a question during registration, and then again in the post-event survey, that is the same question to measure the movement of the needle. And that depends on what your goal for the event is, right? So if your goal is to make people feel closer to Stanford, then that's, how close do you feel to Stanford, scale to 1 to 10, pre and post. If the goal is to make connection amongst alumni there, a question that relates to that. So really kind of triangulate on what your goal for impact is for that specific event. And it shouldn't be the same for every event, right? Because each of your events, in theory, is trying to do something different. So it's kind of measuring the before and measuring after. We're just starting to do this, so I will keep you posted on how it goes. In the past, Stanford Alumni Association has done an every 3 years alumni feelings and engagement survey that measured, but the world is just moving so fast right now, and things are changing, and there's so many different impacts on alumni, their feelings towards the university, their feelings toward higher education as a whole, all these different pieces that moving to this model where you're measuring a little more closely to what you're doing is going to really help us understand if we're doing what we think we're doing.
This is a little bit in the weeds, but I get this question a lot. So you're talking about pre and post survey, getting a vibe back. I get questions a lot from staff in this business who say, we want to ask that question, but we don't get the response rate we need to be able to get the feedback we're looking for. Do you guys have that problem?
I'm very lucky to say we do not have that problem. We have
lucky and unlucky.
yeah. Well, and I think you could still ask in registration, right? Then it's a forced response at that
Correct.
point in time. So you could definitely get some feelings there. We somehow have about I believe it's a 30%, and I'm sorry if I'm inflating this, if anyone from the data team is on and wants to correct me, please do. But I believe it's around a 30% response rate to our post-event surveys. Now, of course, there are events where we get, next to nothing, and then you don't have it. But for the most part, I believe we're in a 30% response rate. So we are very lucky to not have that problem.
Yeah. And Pete Brumbaugh just put in the chat too as well. That we all throw on NPS. There's some people here. Net promoter score is the question that you get after you fly on an air like United Airlines. I got one this morning. Based on your most recent experience on United Airlines, how likely to recommend United to a friend or colleague? That's your NPS question framed around the event experience for Stanford. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about NPS. And a 30% response rate, Steve Rittler just put in, is really good.
It's very good. It's very good. And I will tell you, and that's when I was at the GSB, we had an equally high response rate. Wow. But we always want more. So something that we were doing at the GSB is we started doing paper surveys again and having people turn in surveys for a raffle prize or whatever else before the end of an event. And there's a lot of great tools out there now where you can just scan it in and it'll do the analysis for you. So you don't have to do manual analysis. So there's a lot of really good tools out there right now. Cool. And then also placing QR codes around the event for the post-event survey. And all those things, of course, help. But we're very, very lucky. And if there's any alums listening, thank you for all of the fantastic feedback.
A couple questions left on our script we'll save for the bonus section since we're coming up to the top of the hour here. But I guess I wanted to ask you, as we sort of think about leaving our live audience, talk a little bit about what you're most excited about. It sounds like you're pretty excited about lots of initiatives, including measuring impact. What other areas, now that you're sort of 10 months, almost a year into your job, are you most excited about at Stanford?
Oh man, there's just so much opportunity, right? The opportunity is coming out of the pores. All of the things that I talked about are very exciting. We have an incredible team at SAA that just really cares about the work. So seeing how they grab onto these things and how it changes the work, quite honestly, and this is so dorky, but the metrics is one of the things that excites me the most. And moving to this model of measuring impact and seeing how we change our programming and how we innovate based on those metrics, that's really exciting. We are creating a community at Stanford around all of the alumni relations professionals who are not necessarily in SAA, but around the university. So within the schools, institutes, departments, there are alumni relations folks everywhere, right? And admissions, all over the place that aren't necessarily tied in to SAA at this point. So we're really working hard to create community for that group of folks. We're hosting our second retreat. The first one we did in February after I joined, but in 2 weeks, I think, we're hosting our next retreat for all Stanford Alumni Relations professionals. Really just a time to get people together to talk about things like venues, which is really exciting, but you can only talk about it with people who know about it. We're going to talk about D&I. We're going to talk about all these different pieces, how to work with crisis in your alumni. That's a hot topic right now because we've done nothing but that for the last 3 years. A lot of college
campuses. You're
that's
right.
About and this fall is going to be just as interesting, right? I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon. I think that's a new normal. We're in the throes of planning for a tour coming up. And if you're even thinking about a tour, which we're in thinking stages right now, you have to think about plan A, B, and C, right? Plan A, the ideal. Plan B, if officials from the university can't attend something, and Plan C, if you need to cancel. So and that's just not a world we lived in 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's exciting, it's scary. There's all kinds of opportunities. So yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic.
As a fellow data nerd, I'm with you on the excitement that you share there.
I know when Renee said like I'm most excited about the metrics, I was like, yes, like-minded individuals.
The first step in recovery is acknowledging you have a problem, Renee.
Yeah.
I
Well, man,
love it.
Our conversations always go fast in the live show. We're going to encourage everyone once again, pick up the podcast edition of Alumless so you can hear the rest of our conversation with Renee. Chris, how don't you take us away with our next guest?
Yeah, we're going to skip next 2 weeks from now. If it's a Friday before a holiday weekend, we have learned that people are checking out, so we don't do it. So we skip the Labor Day Friday, and we'll go right to September 13th. With Lauren Simeone from the University of Delaware. If you haven't met Lauren, one of the kindest, sweetest people you ever met in the business, but she's also wicked smart. She's doing some really cool things at a fairly large public flagship institution with a relatively small staff. So it'll be an interesting conversation with Lauren in 4 weeks from today.
My parents are both Blue Hens, Delaware Blue Hens.
Blue Hens.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll be back just after these messages from Protopia. Pick up the podcast edition of Alumless to hear our conversation with Renée Hirschberg from the Stanford Alumni Association. We'll be back after this. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.